Well, the significance to me is applicable to that old adage that we've all leaned on for many, many years, is that money talks and BS walks, and that's really what this comes down to. The reality of the situation is that if Daniel Snyder's bottom line wasn't being affected because you had shareholders and supporters generating in excess of $620 billion, reaching out to PepsiCo and FedEx and Nike, if they hadn't done so, thereby threatening to drastically and emphatically affect his bottom line, there would be no change. The Redskins would still be called the Washington Redskins, and that's what we'd be sitting here looking forward to calling them in the 2020 season. Daniel Snyder did not change this name out of the goodness of his heart. He changed the name because financial pressure was brought to bear. And obviously, we've learned that. We knew that decades ago, if not centuries ago, that the bottom line is that when your bottom line is going to be effective, that will provoke you to change. It's as simple and plain as that. And that's why it leaves me sitting here on this particular day, everybody, Molly, Max, Swagoo. It leaves me sitting here a little bit, a bit jealous and envious to some degree. Not that we've ever had any reason to feel that way about the Native American community, the way that they have been treated in this nation's history. It's an absolute abomination how they have been treated. Make no mistake about it. But the flip side to it is that after 87 years, this name is going to get changed. Symbolic gestures, there is something to be said for that. But when it's limited to just that, it's a problem. This is not a symbolic change when it comes to the Redskins name being omitted from the Washington franchise. This is more than that to the Native American community, and it should be perceived as more than that. But the reason why I use the word envious is because I'm sitting here, I'm watching NBA players fighting over what they should put on the back of their jerseys. I'm watching folks protesting in the streets and painting stuff like Black Lives Matter on Fifth Avenue or in the nation's capital against symbolic gestures. But am I seeing federal legislation to address police brutality against unarmed black men? No. Am I seeing businesses being addressed and confronted by the African American community in concert with white power brokers to address the fact that their products have been patronized? What have they done to reciprocate the level of support that they've received from the African American community? Am I seeing that take place? Am I seeing that transpire? Absolutely not. There is an anti-lynching law or anti-lynching bill, I apologize, that has been put on Capitol Hill. It's called the Emmett Till anti-lynching bill. It still has not been passed in the year 2020. So I'm seeing something like this transpire, and I'm saying in this nation's history, we even have the Native American community ultimately through the support of others getting things done. But we're watching a nation of African Americans in this country, essentially give a lot of lip service, and we're giving a lot of symbolic gestures to stuff. But in terms of what we're really getting done to really move the needle, to really make things happen, what are we really doing? Close to nothing. And so as a result of that, I sit here this morning, guys, and again, I'm appreciative of what's transpired. I was on Get Up this morning. I gave Max major props because Max has been beating this drum forever, and he was right to do so, and it's appropriate that Max, even on vacation, started today's show because he has been dogged about the Redskins name, how it needed to be eradicated. He was absolutely right. We always knew it, but Max deserves a boatload of credit for that, which is why it's great that he started off the show this morning. But as a black man, to see what just happened for the Native American community and to see what still is not happening for our community, along with the lack of provocation that we have enforced in that regard, I'm sorry, I'm a bit envious and sad that something of this significance can't happen for us.
There are a couple of things. One, what Stephen A., what you just mentioned about the African American plight in this country, there's a bill right now, Proposition 20 in California, which would make some things that are now misdemeanors crimes. When we talk about, in other words, this is being smuggled in. When the light is shining on social justice issues, this would swell the prison population and work against African Americans in terms of the industrial prison complex, right? We're talking about that as a much bigger issue, in fact, than police brutality, the criminal justice system and the need for reform. It's in California, corporations are trying to reform it in the wrong direction as we speak. So you're right. Not only are not enough things getting done, some important things are being undone and have been undone. in the last 4 years. But here is an example, as Molly points out, where a terrible name given to a franchise that is obviously disrespectful at the least, it's a racial slur toward Native Americans, is at long last being changed. The fact that the Washington franchise and Dan Snyder disgracefully pointed to an unscientific poll in the Washington Post from several years ago, which would not pass muster in any scientific journal, was not peer reviewed, was part of a different kind of poll, was not scientifically conducted, and said 90% of Native Americans aren't offended by the name. On its face, as soon as I heard that, I knew it was BS. Of course, it's not true. And sure enough, academics from Michigan and Berkeley actually had a scientific, conducted their own poll with using a scientific method. The methodology checks out. Asked the Washington Post was asked for their methodology, really wouldn't provide it. On the other hand, the academics from Michigan and Berkeley were transparent. Yeah, you could look at our findings, see it however you want. The Post apparently asked them, hey, can you look at it this way? Can you look at it that way? And any way they looked at it, a huge percentage of Native Americans were, of course, offended by the name. The fact that in a cowardly, craven way, in a defiant, bratty way, the Washington franchise behind Daniel Snyder hid behind that Washington Post poll and used it as an excuse, as cover, to perpetuate the use of that racist name is a disgrace. They were on the wrong side of history. Let it be recorded. Daniel Snyder didn't do a single thing until he was forced. But make no mistake, he was forced today to change the name. He had no choice, and he changed it, being dragged kicking and screaming into the 21st century. Shame on you, Daniel Snyder, but at long last, that despicable name will be no more.